I am thrilled to be sitting here with two of my favorite people and the most esteemed communication nerds that I know, Dr. Cindy Adams and my dear friend Sage McIntosh, who is the S of BS Communication Strategies. And I guess what I'm hoping we can do is just nerd out a little bit about communication and where we see it going and how we three are going to influence it positively moving forward. I'm happy to hear from either of you, but where do you think communication nerdiness is headed?
Great question. I think we've captured a little bit in some of our conversations today is just getting the word out about what communication is, why it's important, the fact that it's a learned skill, and what it can do for you. I think for me, that's the root of it. It's when I say to people, oh, I teach communication skills. They're like, great, I talk to people too. And you're like, yes, that is a part of it. Absolutely. There's so much more. So I think it's getting that word out of all the different areas it touches, how important good communication skills can impact your personal and professional life. I think that's huge. And then people who have gone through some of your programs and coming out the other side and talking about how powerful and profound these skills have been and them teaching others and sharing the word. It's a movement. And it's so powerful. I just love to see where it's going.
And I think, and I'll get your take on this, Cindy, too. I think it's as powerful when we don't see the skills or feel the skills. Like you're talking about the power and the impact. And I think we all feel an impact when it's not good or it's not. And to me, not good means just not skilled. Person hasn't learned it. What's that impact, do you think, Cindy, when there have been no skills really? Like what happens in here?
Yeah, what happens in here, and I guess where you've led me to is that I like to say there's no bad communication. There's just some that's better at achieving what we're after. I'm hopeful that we will get to a place where people recognize that I want to be able to develop my level of competency in communication to be even better yet. So no bad communication, some's better at achieving what we're after. Let's be clear about what we're after. So I think for every individual that's listening to this, think about what are you after in your role in the profession.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking that maybe there's more than you would like to be able to achieve, be able to accomplish in your business, be able to accomplish in your relationships, I think attending some CE is really important. Make some space, put it in your calendar, make a date with yourself. It's a discipline. And much like all other clinical skill, this requires practice, it requires dedication, it requires freeing each other up to be able to attend some sessions, to be able to attend conferences, if you will. There's not a lot of them. The ones that are available, many of them are very excellent, like BS communication, dynamic dialogue, leadership, excellent sessions.
And I think, what do we say to people that we're on the theme right now of educating others and it's compelling as it's a learned skill? And I often get people that ask me this. They say, Becky, I can communicate well. It's just everyone else that struggles. How do I get my colleague so-and-so to come? Because I'm doing it good, but it's just really everyone else needs the help. What's your response to that?
Yeah, it's a great one. I think I always like to talk to people about, okay, tell me about what didn't work well in that situation with that person. And if you had any other situations similar to that, and they tend to, as they go through it, realize, ooh, okay, maybe I miscommunicated a little bit. I like to explain to people that when we look at some of the communication models, it's hard work. It is hard work to be an effective communicator, an effective listener. There's so many distractions, there's internal, external noise, there's so many different ways that we can miscommunicate. What channel are we using? Are we face-to-face? Are we online? Are we trying to craft an email that sounds a little bit kinder than maybe our intention, right? There's a lot that's rooted in it, and it is hard to communicate effectively. It takes a lot of work. So if we break down perhaps what was challenging communicating with someone else, or was there other situations, they tend to realize, okay, maybe my skills can be improved because, as I said to you earlier, I don't think there's a true communication expert out there. There is so much knowledge.
Yeah.
You can take a lifetime, and that is what I love about it the most. We're always learning. We're always getting better at it.
Yeah. What about you? How do we respond to that person, Cindy? I'm good. I'm fine. If only everyone else could just be better. Then what?
I think it's a real phenomenon, Becky. I think that especially people come to continuing education, they're jazzed, they go back to work, and they're met with just, and you think, oh my gosh, I actually learned something, and look at all you, and I'm seeing that's not happening here. So where do I start? And I like to think of it as one little grain of sand. I picture a pile of sand, and we train people, and we send them back to work, and there's that little grain that just stands out and it kind of slips and slides. It maybe uses reflective listening statement in front of a colleague or with a client, and the client speaks and then reveals all sorts of information. And there's just a little bit of a raised awareness. And I think, so don't give up. And we have heard over and over, it's not working at work so good, but I'm using it with my kids and I'm using it with my spouse and it's having a profound impact. I think is stay committed, keep doing the work. And it's that one grain of sand. Those individuals are one grain and it will affect and people will notice. That's what I think will happen.
Yeah.
We can't fix it all.
We're trying.
We're trying.
One grain of sand.
One grain of sand.
I love that. That's a perfect one.
Great. Is my tagline, my thing that I believe in is this concept of stay nerdy. And I use it all the time. And I know what my interpretation is, but I'd like to know what each of your interpretation is. Because I tell people all the time, stay nerdy, that's one of my thing. And I have a belief in that. But what does that mean to you? If I say, hey, Cindy, stay nerdy, how are you staying nerdy?
What I see is some levity. I see some fun. I see some common ground. I see some lighten up, let's get serious is happening with you. So stay nerdy, but darn it, learn these skills and show me an empathy statement. Yeah. So what does it mean to you?
I think it means stay humble, stay fun, stay light, stay engaged, stay interested, keep learning, right? Keep pursuing your skills in this craft. Keep learning. That's what I love about it the most, right? Something we're still doing every day.
Yeah, it's the truth of it. And I think that's, for me, that's where it all comes together, this concept of staying nerdy with the color orange, which is, I'm pretty impacted by that. But it means that we're compelled to be even better yet. We're compelled to want to learn. We're compelled to be a little awkward when we're still in the skill development, because I feel that for learners. I like to put myself in a learning situation too, where I'm like, oh, this is awkward. Or you realize in that moment you thought you knew something and then you realize you don't. So that's that awkwardness. The phraseology around being a nerd is that there's some awkwardness and there's some intensity, but there's some the interest comes from the study of it and the absolute compulsion to learn more about it. So that's what I about it. So if we were to fast forward, where do you want your communication nerdiness to be in 10 years? How do you see what you're doing impacting the communication world?
I love what Cindy said about the grain of sand, right? And that more and more people are paying attention, trying. I think the word that comes up for me is being uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable. As you said, it can be a little bit awkward as we're trying to learn new things. And that's what they say is if you're comfortable, maybe you're not learning, maybe you're not deepening your knowledge of things. Being uncomfortable is okay. And embrace that a little bit. And so I hope that more and more people are okay to get uncomfortable and embrace it a little bit and try and practice and learn and bring those skills forward and teach others and make others aware of how beneficial these skills can be.
Yeah, I love that. But you, 10 years, Cindy, what are you thinking about 10 years?
I think we keep doing what we do. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're out of the woods 100%. There's risks, there's threats, but I do see globally an investment. I see large practices in Italy, large practices in France. I see many schools creating the space. Like it starts with having even the infrastructure to be able to do this kinds of teaching. So I'm seeing some great stuff happening, Becky. And so I'm really hopeful. I just think we've got to position people's in the roles. We've got to make sure there's adequate training for the work that needs to be done. And I think that's what I want to do for 10 years is make sure that we can replace ourselves with enough nerdy people.
I think what I am optimistic for too is to keep the study going, to keep the enthusiasm, and to really keep generating the interest about it. So on that note, my question to each of you also is, think to a moment where the tide turned for you in communication, in either the study of it or some moment that compelled you where you thought, this is my lane. Like, when was there a moment where you think back on the time where sometimes you have those moments where you have a real clarity of focus, like, this is what I'm to do in the realm of communication? Putting you on the spot here to think of a moment in time where something shifted that you felt and remembered.
I think there's been a lot of different moments. I think what I love about teaching is you often learn as much as the person who you're teaching the skills to, right? And a bit of that reflecting back, and they'll share kind of their moments. And that's usually a bit of an aha for me. But I think my moment was when I really made that decision to go to Royal Roads. It was a huge change for me for my career path, and just being able to get uncomfortable, embrace a bit of that change, create a plan, navigate it, and embrace something that I love was huge for me. I didn't know if I would have done that as much late in life. I didn't know if I had the courage. And so having the courage to be able to do that, learn some new skills, share that with other people, and then watch them learn and have those moments, it's rewarding every time. I get those little moments all the time.
It's very cool. Cindy, moment?
Mine's probably a little more personal. I think for me as a communication scientist, one of the pivotal moment in my career was when one of my publication got accepted. It was not easy to be able to insert communication research into the veterinary literature. If anyone thinks that it was easy, 20 years ago, it was not.
No.
It was considered to be soft skill. We were using some very complex scientific methods that were actually from medicine. And that's too complex for our profession. So many pushbacks on many manuscripts. Qualitative methodology, which is more the sociological approach to doing research, again, really, we hit the wall so many times. And what the floodgate opened when it was like, oh my gosh, this is real work. This is real science. This is really important. And we're going to start accepting your publications. Hallelujah.
Wow.
We made it.
Wow.
So that for me was transformative. It meant I was in the right lane, but it's tough getting in the right lane, just like it's tough learning these skills. Right? It's a bit of a culture shift.
Yeah.
At that time,
It sounds like you had some rejections a little bit.
we got it published, but my poor students, they were highly disenfranchised. It was really tough. You want to pursue a career in clinical communication and do your research, and they're like, nah, don't think so. It doesn't belong in our literature. But we got it. We
No.
did it. What about you, Becky?
It's on the heels of that was very pivotal, was attending the first international conference on communication in veterinary medicine. It was in Banff. I had met you in a previous conference and it was in Banff, so it was in Alberta and I could attend it. And that was the first time that I actually came face to face with research in it. And I have a medicine background, so I like evidence, man. Let's talk about it. Let's see it working. But all these presentations on posters and podiums and these people talking about the growth and what they learned and the evidence. And then, it seemed to me like every great piece of research ended with a question for the next great piece of research that came along. And so that's when I first ever heard anyone say, if we can get good at communicating with people, the research will show that patient care gets better. And I was like, that's what I signed up for. It was good patient care in this career. And it was very I could almost envision it like I was just there, and it was so powerful. It was like that was a light switch on for me, is that this is something that we can all do that affects patient outcomes. And that was the most compelling thing that really drew me to it. And that's what, when we got into my master's, that's when I met you and I were like taking this first dive because we didn't have as much academic background as I don't think I ever did more reading and the introduction to reading that literature and thinking about it. It was just very impactful and inspiring and awe-inducing almost. Something that you asked me earlier, what's your power word and why?
I was thinking grit, as Cindy was talking about, being that face of rejection and continuing to pursue despite those no's and those obstacles. I do have to go back to that word. I do love that word. I know it's one you and I've talked about, but I think really it's just being able to push through and keep trying and knowing that you are in the right lane. They say the people who are the most successful are not necessarily the ones who have all of the information and all of the knowledge and all of the degrees and things. It's often the people who just don't take no for an answer and are just willing to just keep doing it because they just believe in their core it's the right thing to do. So I do love that word very much.
The grit's your power.
Grit. Yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
Power word?
Wow. Yeah, mine's not so powerful, but it is very meaningful, and it's enabled me to do what I've done over the course of my career, and that's humility. I just think that stay humble in the work, believe, and yeah, that's what mine is. What about you?
I love grit. I love humility as well. But I think one of my things that really drives me is the word purpose. That we all have a purpose, that we all are part of something, and that purpose is a compass for me. I feel all the culmination of all my experiences in my career and meeting incredibly influential people like the two of you is just feeding me continually into what my purpose is and what my next thing is. And I feel like I've always felt like I'm pursuing whatever purpose is in front of me at the time, but that really acts as a compass for me and a way to keep going, which we're all doing. Can we do a weird high five?